You know, I've commented on a video with Riley Dennis in it before, although it wasn't really his, or hers, or whatever the pronoun that Riley once used was. I guess it was inevitable that I'd finally have to have it out with Riley because he, or she, or it, is a precious little snowflake who wants to be treated special because they've gone their own way. And I'm sorry, but that's just not how it works. But Riley doesn't know that, or much of anything else, as will become painfully obvious as we explore why the SJW ideology makes you discriminatory.
Would you date someone who's trans?
No, I would not, and I'm sorry if that burst your SJW bubble.
Would you date someone who's black?
Well, I have. But of course, you don't ask if the person you're talking to is black or not. So a black person watching your video who would date another black person, or would not date a white person, is that somehow discriminatory?
Would you date someone who's fat?
Well, I guess that depends on how fat they are, and many other factors. Now, would I date someone who is grossly overweight? No, because that's not healthy.
Would you date someone who's disabled?
In fact, I have.
Now, honestly, I don't know what your answer is to those questions, but I've met a surprising number of people who would say no to all, or at least some of them. Their argument is that it's just a preference, and that you can't control who you're attracted to.
And that's their right. People can refuse to go out with anyone for any reason they happen to think is valid, and it's none of your damn business why they choose to do what they do, any more than it's their business to tell you what you can and cannot do.
I think most of the time that this is brought up, it's in regards to race. I'll link to a couple really good videos in the description about racial dating preferences, but in this video, I want to talk about our other biases.
Well, we know that people are genetically predisposed to favor being with others that are like them. And I'm not saying if it's a good or bad thing because that's irrelevant. People also get programmed by their parents and by society at large to favor some things and reject others. And that's more under an individual's control, but I suspect that Riley here is every bit as programmed as everyone else. He just doesn't see it.
Let's start with trans people. Would you date a trans person, honestly?
Nope. Because I'm not attracted to trans people. I am attracted to natural women, and that's something my genes predispose me to. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't date anyone today because I'm happily married, but you know what I mean.
Think about it for a second. Okay, got your answer? Well, if you said no, I'm sorry, but that's pretty discriminatory.
It is not. Discrimination, by definition, is the unjust or prejudicial treatment of different categories of people or things, especially on the grounds of race, age, or sex. There's nothing unjust or prejudicial in your genes. You simply are what you are, and no matter what you are, there's nothing wrong with it.
Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you're a horrible person who hates trans people. There was probably a time in my life when I said I wouldn't date a trans person, but since then, I've thought critically about it and changed my mind.
That's because you're a trans person. Your sexual preference is predetermined just like everyone else's, as is your sexual identity. And if you're being actually honest, and I'll assume that you are, whatever you are attracted to, whatever your genes determine that you will be attracted to, is something that is entirely beyond your control. I mean, I guess you can talk yourself into whatever you want to talk yourself into, but that's your call, and you have no right to push your decision on others.
I could sit here and show you photos of conventionally attractive trans people. There are definitely trans people who you would never know are trans unless they told you, because they pass for cis. And that might convince some of you. But I think arguing that you would only like a trans person if you didn't know they were trans is a poor argument.
And that might be fine. I mean, I've seen plenty of trans people that I would consider attractive, but looks isn't all there is to a relationship. I mean, it's not even the most important thing in a relationship, except to the extremely shallow. So what difference does it make? I would never look at a woman and say, wow, she's gorgeous, I just want to go out with her. That's ridiculously shallow and immature. And maybe that says a lot about your side.
I think you could be attracted to any trans person, whether they pass or not.
Well, eventually you're going to find out, and someone not being upfront with potential romantic partners about the reality of things, that's blatantly dishonest. I might even argue it's fraudulent, and not telling people about it isn't likely to lead to a good relationship to begin with.
I think the main concern that people have in regards to dating a trans person is that they won't have the genitals that they expect.
Because dating is supposed to lead to something more serious, and the vast majority of people want to reproduce at some point in time. So yes, the genitals will ultimately become extremely important to the vast majority of people.
Because we associate penises with men and vaginas with women, some people think they could never date a trans man with a vagina or a trans woman with a penis.
Because even if they've had those things reconstructed, they still don't operate, at least with modern technology, like a natural sex organ. A trans man with a vagina can never have children, and a trans woman with a penis can never father a child. Like it or not, for the vast majority of people, that's important.
But I think that people are more than their genitals. I think that you could feel attraction to someone without knowing what's between their legs.
On a very shallow level, sure. But on more than that basic level, the whole of the person is important, and that includes their genitals and whether or not they work as they're supposed to.
And if you were to say that you're only attracted to people with vaginas or people with penises, it really feels like you're reducing people just to their genitals.
No, it feels like people are being honest about their sexual orientations and preferences. Of course, you can have relationships with people that are not sexual in nature. You can be friends and enjoy being with that person without ever having the kind of physical contact that being in a relationship involves. And what the hell's wrong with that?
You're kind of objectifying them, but you're thinking of them more as genitals than objects, so I guess you're kind of genitalifying them? Anyway, my point is, we have implicit biases that we were raised with or that we developed over time, and they can be hard to get rid of.
Or that we were born with, but you don't want to recognize that.
And I think this can be especially prominent within the queer community. Gay men often pride themselves on being disgusted by vaginas, and the same goes for lesbian women with penises.
Why is there anything wrong with that? I mean, a straight man who has no interest in having sex with someone who has a penis, why wouldn't we expect the same thing from a lesbian? Why should she have any interest in a penis when her sexual orientation says otherwise? Come on, that makes no sense, Riley.
It's difficult because some queer people have built their sexual identities on these repulsions, but I don't think they're innate at all. If you met someone who was extremely attractive, had a great personality, but didn't have the genitals that you wanted, you might be surprised to find that it isn't a deal breaker.
Then you don't know anything about biology. Your sexual orientation is hard-coded in your genes. Now, I know you SJW idiots think that everything is nurture and nothing is nature, but you're just wrong.
As someone who is trans and gay, sometimes people ask me, with a very accusatory tone, if I would date a girl with a penis. Because there's this stereotype that trans lesbians are just predatory cis men creeping on cis women. But the thing is, I absolutely could be attracted to a woman with a penis. I could be attracted to any woman, cis or trans. If I find you attractive, I don't care what you have down there. But we know that sexual orientations are more innate than learned. They're more nature and less nurture.
You know, it's actually kind of surprising to hear you say that, because most SJWs think that sexual orientation is entirely learned and not at all innate. If sexual orientation is innate, as all the evidence shows that it is, then this whole video is pointless, because people are attracted to what they're attracted to, regardless of your political ideology.
Gay conversion therapy has been proven not to work.
Exactly. And it doesn't work because your orientation is programmed into you at a genetic level. You cannot change someone's genes, at least not with modern technology. But you're pretending that someone's genetic predispositions are somehow prejudices that they can unlearn, which is just as stupid as gay conversion therapy.
But you can unlearn your own prejudices. It just takes time and conscious effort. And the way that we talk about potentially dating trans people has a lot in common with the way we discuss other preferences. Saying that you're not attracted to fat people isn't innate. It's informed by a society that tells you that being thin is ideal.
No, it's informed by your genes, which tell you to look for healthy men and women to breed with. And this is not healthy, no matter how you spin it. So most people are not interested in dating the grotesquely obese. Welcome to reality.
Everything in the media you consume is bombarding you with messages that skinny is beautiful and fat is ugly. And even the nicest of people absorb these messages to some degree. But again, if you find someone attractive and really enjoy spending time with them, there's no reason why their weight should be a factor. Especially since we know that the relationship between weight and health is extremely complex, and you really can't make any moral judgments on a person based on their weight.
Totally wrong. Medical science knows exactly what is unhealthy. And this isn't it. Now, these might be perfectly wonderful people, but the overwhelming majority of humans on the planet are not going to be looking at that person and going, whoa, baby, I want me some of that. And there's nothing wrong with that.
And lastly, let's talk about disabled people. Disabilities come in a very wide range, from being deaf to being in a wheelchair to only having one arm, and I think it's pretty ridiculous to say that you couldn't be attracted to any person who has any of those disabilities.
Well, that depends on what you find important in your life. If you're looking for someone to share your love of mountain climbing, somebody in a wheelchair is probably not the person for you. And there's nothing wrong with wanting that if that's what's important to you.
Disabilities can happen to anyone. Someone you're extremely attracted to today could become disabled tomorrow, and that shouldn't make your attraction to them disappear.
It might not. Why is it any of your business? I mean, if my wife lost an arm in an accident tomorrow, it's not going to change how I feel about her because I have a pre-existing emotional connection. Had she been missing an arm 30 years ago when I met her, that might have been a different thing. But why does it matter to you, Riley? Can't you find somebody to go out with?
Though if it does, it might not be because of them, but rather because you have some preconceived ideas about disabled people that are just inaccurate and harmful.
No. Again, this is your genes telling you to find people who are physically and emotionally fit to spend your life with and raise children with. Our genes evolved this way to produce the strongest and best fit children that we can.
Unsurprisingly, this is another case of the media telling you that a certain group isn't attractive. Disabled people are rarely romantic leads. Their stories in movies and TV shows are often tragic, but that doesn't reflect the reality that disabled people can be happy and have dating lives and be attractive.
Indeed they can. But the reason that disabled people aren't usually the leads in movies and on TV is because those people are typically seen as the ideal, people for whom the audience can aspire to be. And I don't know very many normal people who aspire to be disabled. I mean, yeah, you can get the rare person who has mental problems and wants to chop off a limb or two, but that's not seen as normal nor mentally stable.
Now, if you're not attracted to someone, you're not attracted to them. I'm not going to tell you that you have to be attracted to this fat person or that trans person or that disabled person.
But isn't that what your entire video has been about? That if you're not attracted to fat people or trans people or disabled people, that somehow you're a bigot? Seriously, Riley, do you listen to yourself?
The more you work at unlearning your own prejudices, the more you'll be able to see people from these groups as people rather than tired stereotypes.
I already see them as people. I have friends from all of those groups, and I think they're wonderful people, or I wouldn't be friends with them. I may not want to date them, if I was in a position to date at all, of course, but that doesn't mean I think that they're anything but individuals and generally really good people.
Unlearning our own biases doesn't happen overnight, and I don't have a step-by-step instruction guide for you. But I think if you can accept that these prejudices exist in all of us, even you can identify them when they come up and work to change how you think about them.
You're just assuming that these learned biases do exist in everyone because you don't like the fact that a lot of these biases are not learned, they're innate. And there's nothing wrong with innate biases. It's how the human species has evolved and humanity has thrived. It's why you're here.
It will most likely be a long, slow process, but I think it's worth it. Because these dating preferences are ultimately harmful to people who don't fit into your box of what a conventionally attractive person looks like. It makes people feel isolated, alone, and unwanted to hear that they're universally unattractive to people.
Just because someone is unattractive to me doesn't mean that they're unattractive to everyone. And in fact, the overwhelming majority of people on this planet are unattractive to me because I've got high standards. I mean, looks aren't really that important. Personality, ideology, and other non-physical aspects matter a whole lot more to me than how you look. But let's be honest, I only have to find one person, and I've done that. Nothing else matters.
I don't think there's anyone out there who somebody doesn't find attractive. We're sold this image of the conventionally attractive person, but in reality, all kinds of people around the world are constantly dating, having sex, finding people attractive, getting married. It's not only the conventionally attractive who find love or have sex.
So why are you making this video? If virtually everyone can find someone, why do you care about what people think? Are you mental?
So by working on ourselves to dispel that idea, we can make the world a more welcoming and loving place for everybody, no matter how they look.
But you just said that everyone can find someone. So what difference does it make if the world is more welcoming and loving? I honestly think you just can't get laid.
This video is a part of my Feminism with Riley series that I'm doing in collaboration with Everyday Feminism, a website dedicated to helping you stand up to and break down everyday oppression.
So it's just your own SJW stupidity on display. Great, that's what we all need. But that's really how it works if you have any experience at all with these special little snowflakes. They clearly have no idea what it is that they want or how to get there. They think that all they have to do is throw around a bunch of buzzwords and insults, and everybody will want to be like them. Hell no. In fact, their tactic just drives rational people away. The SJW mantra is just some of the most sexist, racist, and outright discriminatory things you can find, and they're not aware of it. Or maybe they just don't care. Either way, it should be opposed by anyone who considers themselves to be a rational, moral, or intelligent individual. It appeals only to the hyper-emotional, those who can't think their way through their problems. They can only feel. And feeling isn't how you solve problems. It's how you cause problems, which is why America flat out rejected the emotional left in the last election. Their time has come, and they have failed miserably. But I bet you they don't get that message because it doesn't make them feel good. And that, like it does with the religious, makes them utterly pathetic losers.